now via Skype by Gemma Thomas from Channel 9 News. And please bear with us on the sound quality of this interview. Gemma, if I could begin by asking you about the sentence that was handed down to Adrian Bailey. He was sentenced to life in prison, but how long is he likely to serve?
Well, he's been given a 35-year jail term, but because he breached parole when he committed the murder and the rape of Jill Meagher, and he was already on parole for other offences, he could have an extra 2.5 years added to that sentence. So he could be at least 80 years old before he's eligible for release.
And did the judge have anything to say about Adrian Bailey as he handed down that sentence?
Yes, he did, Nora. He did say that it was the most heinous of crimes, that it was savage and degrading, that the killing was the most, the worst kind conceivable. He said the community needed to be protected from people like Adrian Bailey. Adrian Bailey had a long history. He's been convicted of at least 20 rapes, and he just shouldn't be on the streets.
How does this sentence rank in terms of the Australian legal system, Gemma?
Well, this is a record minimum term. We haven't seen this kind of thing for a while. People have been sentenced to life without parole in jail, but the judge felt that he had to make an exception because Bailey had pleaded guilty and saved the community the expense of a trial and the family the distress of a trial. So he did make the minimum term.
And how did Bailey react when the sentence was handed down?
In court today, Bailey just kept his head bowed. He didn't react at all. He was silent throughout the proceedings. However, the public gallery erupted. When his sentence was called out, there was an audible yes in the courtroom, and also there was crying, lots of tears from the public. But throughout the whole thing, Bailey himself kept silent with his head bowed.
And were Jill's family and her husband in court, Gemma?
Yes, they were in court today. They seemed to be very composed throughout the whole process. Jill's mother, Edith, and Jill's husband, Tom, linked arms as they walked outside of court. They were very united. Her father, George, came outside of court and said that justice had been done. He also paid tribute to Jill and the kind of woman that she was.
Did this case receive a lot of media coverage in Australia, Gemma?
Oh, absolutely. Nora, this case has been unprecedented. It has had amazing coverage. It has had a massive outpouring of grief and anger among people. It's horrific. We all sort of identify with Jill and her family and what they're all going through. We all sympathise, but I think the major thing to come out of this is that our parole system is now under review. We have the toughest parole system in the whole of the country, where if you are breaching a parole, you go straight back to jail, and we're hoping to change the laws and make it against the law to breach parole.
Finally, is Melbourne considered to be a safe city today, Gemma?
This crime was just horrific. Its nature, the fact that it was so random, it was an attack on a young woman who was just going about her business. It's not at all indicative of the way that Melbourne is. I'm a young woman myself. I feel safe in Melbourne. That's why I think it really tugged at the heartstrings. I think that's why people reacted so badly, because it was just so heinous and horrific. To think that a woman couldn't walk home on her own without something as disgusting and awful as this happening.
Well, I'd like to thank you very much, Gemma, for joining us from Melbourne via Skype. Coming up,